Hello there, folks. Welcome to another Train Sim Classic video. Today we're going to be taking a look at something fairly interesting that was recently released a few days ago. Finally able to get my hands on it, take a look at it here today with you. The Southern Railways Locatrol Radio Receiver Car, or Locatrol, so on and so forth. This is by Switchpoint Simulations. This is their website here. Of course, you're going to go to Switchpoint Simulations on the interwebs. You're going to go over to add-ons, go down to rolling stock, and bam, there it is. You've also got some nice Norfolk and Western 100-tonners, a couple of cabooses as well, and then, of course, which we looked at recently on the channel, was the actual Norfolk Southern and Ex-Southern SD40-2 pack, which there is supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, an update to these with a lot of cool stuff. But anyway, we're going to be looking at the car itself. So let's go ahead and hop in and see what's what. So just a little bit of backstory. The Southern Railway started basically experimenting with these radio cars, which were then what we know as today distributed power units to get power mid-train on heavier, longer trains instead of just all at the front or some manned helpers at the back, so on and so forth. So this started around the 1960s, I think, maybe even the late 50s. And Southern went through a couple. This is one of them here on screen, but they even used a Fairbanks Morse H1544, more of the chassis. They used one of those to put some of the equipment in, some old Alco RS3s, FTBs, and more, of course, which leads up to the boxcar, which we're going to take a look at here in a minute. So, you know, technology back in these days obviously was new. They were testing a lot of things. Some new things were being built, and it was massive. So they had to have something to house all this stuff in that couldn't exactly be a locomotive. The locomotive itself generally already has a ton of crap in it, so you can't fit too much more. Nowadays, of course, that is not the case. I mean, the stuff is like the size of a car radio, basically. So anyway, the cars were filled with, you know, big cabinets of magnet relays, breaker cabinets, tool cabinets, of course, radio power packs, air tanks, because I believe they could operate them if they needed to. So they also had some directional controls. What else with that? Brake stand, obviously. And then I think they had some weight or some ballast added as well, because you didn't want to be in too light on the train. But early loco chassis radio cars were prone to derailment, you know, so history says, via the Southern Railway and a couple other railroads that used them. So later, they were refitted with box cars, which is what we're going to be taking a look at today. This is probably the closest representation. And these were used up until the 90s. And I think there's even a short line that used one as kind of like a spacer car, even up until maybe a decade or so ago. But the Southern Railway was one of the first major roads to kind of experiment with this quote-unquote technology or idea. So it controlled the mid-train locomotive with radio power, essentially. So equipment to do such a thing was just too large to put in a standard locomotive, so hence the receiver car, as it was also known, was born. And then the receiver car would be married to the mid-consist or mid-train units, like you would see here, for example. So one locomotive in a consist would essentially send out the signal. So you would just need that one locomotive, kind of like today, that one locomotive to send the signal to the receiver car at the back, which then you could marry up to any locomotive. And it was basically, you know, caveman style MU power. That's essentially what it was. But once you had the car married up to something else, it could run MU to pretty much anything else. So the Southern and Norfolk Southern, of course, used them as well for a little bit. Had smooth and ribbed units. This, of course, here is a smooth look, maybe X rib unit. It's kind of got the bars going down the side there. But they also had a couple of different colors. So they had a red, what do they call it? Like a Tuscan almost, and then just like a brown. There were a few different shades. I'm sure different shops maybe painted these things up, and they just ended up the way they were. They were tools, necessary for big, heavy, long trains, essentially. So they just did what they needed to do, um, paint wise. So yeah. So this is distributed power in its earliest form, a radio receiver car. Other locomotives, or not locomotives, but railroads did this as well. And of course, we have an upcoming high iron simulation, as it's dubbed, retro rolling stock pack. And boy, that's a whole lot of desaturated brown. So this is going to be for sale very much likely this week, at the end of this week of the 23rd of October, 2023. And this, of course, will not be free. But the funny thing is a lot of this rolling stock in this pack that's going to be sold is freeware repainted. So can kind of do you one better right now if you want the radio car, because that's probably the coolest thing that would possibly be out of this pack. You can get it for free right here, right now from Switchpoint Simulation. So let's go take a look at that. So here they are, guys, the receiver cars. Of course, again, these are completely free. The only thing you need to use these are, of course, this mod or enhancement download, and the jointed rail / searchlight simulation freight pack 02, which is also FREE, as is all of their freight packs. Completely free. Some of the best freight rolling stock you can get for North American Train Sim Classic for free. Not a repainted freeware pack sold for $20 over and over and over and over like some devs like to do. So this uses that, and they look really damn good. The color is very nice. It's not all desaturated. So just want to show you over here, a lot of these 100-tonner coal guns are the high iron simulations stock, or so it's dubbed, from the Asheville to Spartanburg line, or as it's known as Saluda, on the Steam Workshop. These look okay. These are old as hell. It looks like they put some new trucks on them. Of course, added some new bits and bobs, stickers, numbers, logos, things like that. But the models themselves are very old, but it's typically the colors that are the issue, and the texturing, and they always just look very old. It's like looking at an old book made in like the 1920s or something. The way the pages look, it's still got that look. Like, look at those versus this. This is how new modern stuff should look. And then you've got these and other various DTM rolling stock, which all kind of looks like a sun-baked turd. It's been sitting on the ground for days and days and days, versus this. So this is free, and it looks really good. It looks very appropriate. The numbering and the lettering on these, not only are they unique to each one. So this is 905158, so it's got the roster 905190, 905022. I don't know the exact roster of these. The Southern and Norfolk Southern were kind of weird about these. The different ones they had, the different colors. I think there were at least 2 different number ranges, but they do look very, very good and appropriate. They've got the little radio aerials, which were, part of the signal repeating up here, which were added, which is very, very cool. So you do see those. You've got the door to access the unit right here. So this is, this is weathered nicely. It's a little bit chunky as far as like the weathering department, but if you're back a decent distance like this, that looks absolutely acceptable to me, versus like the typical stuff that's 30 years old almost, that looks always the same over and over, just repainted, which is that stuff. So the DTM pack as well, they've got the font and the numbering right for the most part, but with this, it's a lot more appropriate. The numbers and the letters themselves are spaced out a lot better. They look a lot more natural to how the actual prototypical unit would have looked. Some of these had I don't know when it started, but they had the barcode of the classification deal. generally I think about right here. The vents were definitely added. Those look pretty cool and appropriate. You'll note on the DTM model, they are absolutely massive and look a bit ridiculous, as does the brown. At least this is kind of that more reddish color. But plus it's, it's already built on top of a very nice, piece of freeware rolling stock that, you're not asked to pay for. So the thing looks very, very good. You're going to get obviously different numbers in the number range. And then, of course, these were set up to run as like mid-train power. So with Train Sim Classic, some stuff does not work that way, sadly. It'll be interesting to see if the DTM radio cars work, but most of the old school rolling stock does work as kind of linked helpers, just because that's the way some of the old Train Sim Classic stuff is. These don't. These will not. So these, of course, are the Southern, ex-Southern, Norfolk Southern SD40 packs, which you can also get from Switchpoint Simulations, which are built on top of the jointed rail and Searchlight Simulations SD40, which you'll need as the basis for these. So it's only appropriate that I've got them hooked up here. Anyway, these do not work in that sense to where you just throw them on the back of a train and they'll power up. It's that's just not how it works. So this radio car was meant to do that. It would be pretty baller if this somehow did manage to have those throttle up, but as far as I can tell, I don't think that is probable. I don't want to say possible. I don't think it's probable at the moment. It would be very cool, but again, this rolling stock is light years above. It's not unobtainium as far as running the stuff. It's not any more difficult. Fact, dare I say, running some of the newer high iron / DTM crap is a lot more difficult than running some of the better stock like the JR Searchlight and all the enhances, and the mods out there over the years, which is just more prototypical anyway. This isn't a big anti-DTM high iron video. We've got plenty of time for stuff like that down the road here, because it's always going to be the same as far as I can tell. But yeah, you can get a free radio car right now. I'll link it down below where you can go and pick that up and do some nice Southern and Norfolk Southern operations with this thing and have fun with it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.